Convicted on 34 felony charges. So Jennifer Nassour joins us. Jennifer's the former Massachusetts GOP chair. These are strange times we live in, right, Jennifer?
Very strange times, absolutely.
What do you make of the politics, and to Joe's point, of what the impact of this is? Much different in many ways than the Trump trial. This is not a president, it's a president's son, but it's the son of a president in the middle of a presidential campaign. I mean, how do you look at it?
Well, I mean, they're different, but they're the same, right? In one instance, we have the political persecution of a former president who is a major party, almost major party nominee, and seems very political. On the other end, you've got Hunter Biden, who is a bad actor. I mean, he has a history of not just abusing drugs, but his gun possession, his drug possession. And so I think that, it is very different when it comes to the politics of it. In the one instance with Hunter, he should be prosecuted and he should be on trial. On the other one with Trump, it just reeks of politics. And so, it's a very unfortunate time. And like you said, it's kind of a crazy time in politics. I don't think our founding fathers ever thought anything like this was ever going to happen during an election year.
No, they're scratching their heads. They had no idea about this kind of thing, what these people would put them through on both sides. To that point, you had a tweet. I want to skip ahead and put your tweet up about this podcast you had where you're talking about how parties handle scandals. There's a notable hypocrisy, I want to go back and focus on that word, in how the Democratic and Republican parties handle internal scandals involving their members. You go on to talk about the podcast. Hypocrisy, pick up on that.
Well, I mean, so, one of the things we were talking about was the difference between Menendez on the Democratic side and George Santos on the Republican side. So the Republicans took swift action against George Santos as everything was playing out and admonished him and pushed him to the side, and then finally were able to get rid of him out of Congress. Whereas Menendez is still in the Senate. He's still an actor who's playing, and he has done worse things than what George Santos did. And so again, the hypocrisy, this is what we're seeing between the Trump trial and with Hunter Biden, is that it's the hypocrisy on the from the left to the right, and not hitting the same way. And so it's a really unfortunate time. I think that the American people are so sick of the games, of the political games, so sick of that hypocrisy, and really would like to hear what our candidates and what our elected officials are going to do for us. Because at the end of the day, we pay them, our taxpayer dollars, pay our elected officials. And when we're being asked to listen to what, is going on and everyone targeting each other, let's talk about the border. Let's talk about the migrant crisis. Let's talk about the economy. We're not hearing anything about that.
I guess the one thing I would say on the left-right part of it is that, in the Trump trial last week, he was saying, he being the former president, that somehow Biden was directing all of this from Washington, which he had no evidence of. But at the same time, now you have this Biden Justice Department, to Joe Khalil's reporting a moment ago, that's actually, think about it, technically prosecuting the president's own son. So there is that. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, there is that, but I think, look, if the sitting president doesn't allow his Justice Department to go after his son when he's allowing them to go after a political opponent, then where do we live? Do we live in Russia? Do we live in Colombia? Do we live in Venezuela? Or do we live in the United States? Right,
but doesn't it cut into that argument that the former president was making a bit, that somehow Biden is directing all of this from Washington? If he was doing that, you would suspect that he would be doing something about his son.
Well, I think politically he has to, right? I mean, he's on the political hot seat right now. Our border is open and he's gone after President Trump. He has to do something with Hunter Biden. Hunter's been in the news for the past 6 years, so something has to be done. I think that it is politically prudent for the president and his campaign to make sure that the DOJ goes after Hunter. But again, he can act differently as a dad and be concerned from the position of a parent.
I wonder what. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.